I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine now. Last week I was a little bit under the weather, so were you, as I understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that we synchronized our.
I was thinking that it was a very good timing that.
So yeah, but we are fine today, and we have a lot of things that kind of accumulated over the couple of weeks, and wow, I mean, it's never a boring moment in crypto, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes it's never a dull moment.
So yeah, so it's an interesting combination of things that happened, because I think it kind of illustrates, I think, most of the spectrum of shit that we have to deal with, in crypto.
Yeah.
I think the funniest one is this Bolt token,
Yeah. Absolutely.
because I mean, like, every time I see something like this, I'm like, really, again?
Yeah.
Like, how does it happen, that people continue buying these weird tokens? And what's interesting is that it was on Base, which is this new Coinbase or whatever blockchain that they have introduced. And if I understand correctly, I don't know if it's like centralized in a way that they should know who is deploying contracts or not, but somehow this person managed to scam it anyway.
Yeah. Very strange. And like the way they did it was so weird as well.
Yeah, it was absolutely, like, why, like, I'm not sure, like, I didn't understand what this token was even kind of supposed to represent, even remotely.
I think if I'm not mistaken, it was meant to represent Brian Armstrong's head.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think of it, that's enough. Yeah, I think it's a good enough reason to buy it. Yeah. So then there was this really horrible issue with Curve.
Yeah, I was on not well enough to really dive into that, but I did see a lot of chit chat about it, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially a lot of Curve is on. Oh no, there was like two topics kind of here, right? One was about like the issues with the contracts, and one was with the Curve founder getting liquidated.
Yeah, so it started with this bug, and the bug was in the compiler. So basically what happened is that the code that was supposed to be protected from reentrancy attacks, after compilation, it was not protected, and somebody took advantage of that, and it was a bug in the compiler. So there was a very good tweet, like the thread on Twitter, that explained exactly how it went down when they noticed, how they analyzed it, and it's really, it reads like a detective story, because it was kind of very intense. And then once this happened, obviously several pools were exploited, and then as you know, the founder of Curve, he took a huge loan with Curve tokens as collateral.
Yeah.
And when these tokens started to go down in price, then I don't exactly know what eventually happened, whether he was liquidated or not, but it was obviously not good.
Yeah, and like, had he have got liquidated, it would have like or at least it would have cascaded, and like, it seemed as though it would have ended up in bad debt for Aave. Was it Aave or Compound, or one of the lending platforms?
Aave, I think. Yeah. So it's really a big problem when such things happen with big protocols. Fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. But one of the things that I think are important there, that they couldn't like touch the pools themselves. They only could kind of work around it, because the pools themselves are immutable. And this is kind of one of the important trade-offs, that when you deploy a contract which is not upgradable or not easily upgradable or like fixable, from one thing, it improves decentralization, because nobody can, kind of do anything bad with it. But on the other hand, if there is an actual bug and you need to fix it quickly, then it becomes a problem. So you cannot even and this is for example why, like, every time we deploy an application on Beam, it's like, we would have wanted to make it completely immutable as a contract, but we were actually scared to do it, even though each contract has a minimum update period of at least 1 week right now. So it's kind of, it's somewhere in the middle, right? So we will be able to fix a bug in Dex, let's say, but we also cannot, change anything without anyone noticing or like having time to react to it. So it's kind of a trade-off of sorts. But it was bad.
And this is something that comes up often is this trade-off. I mean, we talked about a lot with regards to privacy and this kind of thing, and kind of it seems to be everywhere in the crypto space. Like you have to make trade-offs, whether it's with privacy, whether it's with security or scalability and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues that make crypto really kind of look bad in the eyes of many people who like are thinking about participating in DeFi or like looking at it from the outside is that the overall quality, I would say, of most smart contracts is not that good. And it's not very, I would say, reassuring for somebody who thinks, okay, now I'm going to trust, a lot of my money into these smart contracts that are supposed to be, smart, decentralized, whatever. But in reality is that one small bug and all of that money is gone.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the very important takes from that is that even the biggest protocols can have these issues, and we all have to be very vigilant and continue testing. And the audits are not enough, in my opinion. Like you can audit it how many times you want, but eventually you still have to invest a lot of money into testing, automatic testing, all of these, standard quality assuring procedures that we've been doing in software for many years. So we need to continue doing that.
Yeah.
Another funny aspect that I really liked it. This MEV bot that scammed the scammer, like they front run the scammer, so they took some of the money that was stolen from the pool and then gave it back to her.
Okay, yeah, I saw this. I recognized, I vaguely saw this and recognized one of the names. I can't remember it now, but they'd done it before, and it was like this. It was like the hackers were getting front run by kind of generalized front running bots. Yeah. And it's not the first time this has happened, right?
No, it's not. But it was the biggest one. It was like 5.4 million or something like that US dollar. Yeah. So it was a I think biggest MEV reward, and also like this specific bot chose to return this fund to the protocol, which is nice. But it doesn't change the fact that in general, I'm not sure about the morality or legality of all of this MEV business, because, I mean, if you steal from a scammer, probably it's fine, but I don't know. Could have been somebody else. They didn't really say, oh, it's a scammer, let's run this specific transaction. They just said, oh, we see something profitable here, let's do it. And then they said, oh, wait.
Yeah, and it's like every other transaction is front running. I mean, I don't know if you say innocent or whatever, but front running everyday people in the order books or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was also this issue or like concern for this, for operators of this bot. Like basically what they're doing, they're stealing stolen funds, right? And these funds could have been frozen, as we know, by USDC or whatever. Like there are quite a few entities these days that can freeze your funds even on chain. And they thought, you know what, let's give it back. So I don't know the line of thinking, but in any way, this is problematic from legal point of view, because like if you see like a thief running in the street with a pile of money and then like part of that money falls, like, and they pick it up, I don't think you can be too comfortable thinking that you did the right things here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was another kind of funny development there. Yeah. So and that was just like basically 1 week or something. It was crazy.
Yeah. A very busy week to kind of see out July.
My God. Did you scan your eyes already?
No, I've been curious about the individuals that are choosing to do so, especially the ones that at least appear to be lining up and waiting to have their eyeballs scanned.
I really don't know how truthful these photos are. Like whether it's really happening or is it a PR stunt and they all actually get paid just to stand there.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that happened is that a few governments said, wait a second, there is somebody running around our countries and scanning people's eyes. So let's ask some questions here. Like, wait a second, what are you doing here? And don't get me wrong, I don't think that they're here to protect these people and say, no, you shouldn't do it. It's just basically saying like, you probably need our permission or pay us or something, or, we want to scan the eyes first. I don't know. So it's one of those things. So I'm definitely not taking care of it.
The one thing that I thought was very telling was the speed at which it went from like we're scanning eyeballs to we're scanning eyeballs and giving like the information to governments that ask. It wasn't like it wasn't so much of a gap in between the two.
Yeah, so I actually read. So I was thinking about making a video about it because I really want, for a long time now, to restart my YouTuber career in a way and start making more videos, because every time we have this space, I always feel like there are some things that I wanted to talk about, but didn't have the time. So I said maybe I should record this video. So I wanted to do one about WorldCoin. So I started researching this topic, and I went to their own kind of privacy policy because I wanted to see what they're saying about how they're keeping this data, basically kind of doing fact checking on this. And it's very interesting because in one hand, there is this kind of, zero knowledge part to it when they say, no, we're not necessarily storing this data that we're collecting, we're just generating that ID, and then you can use it in a zero knowledge proof to, basically prove that you are a person, but not necessarily reveal your identity. And then immediately it kind of starts breaking, because first of all, you can custody this information yourself, but they also offer you a service where they can hold it for you in a way. And then all of this zero knowledge proof thing is kind of mute. And also these operators, these people that are running around the world, Barcelona, wherever, with these orbs and scanning people's eyes, I don't know, they call them what's they call them? Not the operators or something like that. And they don't even say whether they're employees or of WorldCoin or subcontractors, what kind of, what are their obligations? And then after all of these, is basically just, there are so many ways, so many parts in the system that can go wrong and just get your information leaked. And it's crazy. So each step is very vulnerable for all kinds of attacks.
Yeah, I know very little about WorldCoin apart from the sphere or whatever they call it that scans your eyeballs. But I couldn't help but when I first heard of it, think the guys with the orbs must get a cut of the payment that the people scanning their eyeballs get. The people scanning their eyeballs must have to pay in WorldCoin to get their eyeballs scanned to get more WorldCoin. And I thought there must be some Ponzi scheme aspect to it all, given that it's scanning eyeballs and crypto. But I don't know. I don't know.
No, one question that I really wanted to get an answer to, and I don't have the answer yet, but it's always a big question: what happens to all of the data collected by a company when this company goes bankrupt or disappears or for any reason? Because when you are a company and you register and you create all of these kind of GDPR compliant systems and all that, it's all good and fine. But once the company is dismantled, or what happens to all of this data? Because I know for a fact that in many cases this data is just being sold to someone who has been then using it for census or for calling you with all kinds of stupid offers or whatever, right? But when it's basically your biometric data that cannot be changed about you, and what happens to that data? So for example, in Israel they have this biometric ID, and this database is controlled by the government. So I don't think that it's secure 100% or whatever, but at least it's controlled by the government, so the government is at least not supposed to sell it to anyone for profit or whatever. But in this case, it's a clearly private company, for-profit company, collecting biometric data. So I'm not exactly sure how it works when tomorrow they will go bust and disappear? Like, what will happen with all of these scanned eyes? Like, where all of this information will land eventually?
Do they sell it in the estate liquidation to the highest bidder or?
Yeah, I mean, one good thing that happened after all of these stories, I just went and watched again the Minority Report.
Okay, this is a good one.
Because he has this procedure where his eyes are replaced so he couldn't be recognized by eye scanner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of the future. I mean, it's always crazy to me when the most kind of absurd parts of movies become reality very quickly.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's a crazy film, and then like give it a couple of years, and whoa, this is weird.
Yeah, and I remember like when I watched it the first time, I was like, haha, like very funny. Yes, he replaces his eyes, like it's utopian science fiction, blah blah. But no, it's not. It's like around the corner, and then not in a good.
I was reading. I thought of the Minority Report earlier today because I was scrolling Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, and I came across some random thing that was the NRO, the National, I don't know how to even say this word, reconnaissance office, and it's like some USA state department kind of thing, and like it has the most funding, which I found surprising because I've never heard, and so wasn't that I was surprised that it was the most funded, more than the FBI and CIA and all the three-letter agencies. But they were talking about, the thread was talking about something like Minority Report, and I won't talk too much about it because I didn't read it carefully, and also it's not very relevant. But they had a project that they were trying to, they were like predicting where targets would be before they were there, kind of thing, so that they could focus in like satellites or whatever on those particular places in order to like gain information or whatever, rather than like, obviously with satellites you can't scan everywhere, I guess. No idea. So they use this like, I guess, predictive method to try and see where the most likely positions were.
Interesting.
I don't know where I was going with that. But
no, I mean, I understand the point of kind of trying to predict and the crime, and then there was the question like, will there ever be a crime if you didn't predict it, if you didn't stop it? Yeah, it's funny, but also a bit worrying, I would say. So I hope I don't live to see this, but that's another story altogether. Anyway, on that optimistic note, so today we have several updates, about Beam finally, and also we had a lot of very interesting questions about Beam as well. So let's start with the updates first, if it's okay with you, and then let's do the question.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we will start with the hackathon, which was recently announced, and the idea behind this hackathon is to combine two projects like Beam, obviously, and Nostr. And if you're not familiar with Nostr, you should be, because it's a great protocol for decentralized messaging and kind of exchange of information. So you can build a kind of a Twitter with it or a messenger, and it's completely decentralized. And there are a lot of interesting implementations out there, a lot of interesting clients. There is a very active community of developers and people who are operating the relays, which are the server sides for the Nostr protocol. And when we kind of looked at it, we saw a lot of interesting opportunities, mainly because there are currently integrations of Nostr with Lightning channels, so you can send kind of people tips and using the Lightning network. And then so what we said is like, okay, so if you can integrate Lightning, then definitely integrate all kinds of different services on Beam, right?
Yeah.
So that was the idea. And one of the focuses of this hackathon is building decentralized applications. So we tried to make it less about the infrastructure parts and more about applicative parts. So I think it will be more attractive to developers because, basically web technologies that a lot of people are using in their daily life of development. So you don't need to implement, all kind of, protocol levels or like cryptography levels, primitives. It's all already exists in the Beam ecosystem, but you can use it, all of these things to create interesting applications. So that's the kind of the core idea behind this hackathon. And as I said, we announced it, I think yesterday, and we have a forum on forum.beam.mw, a forum thread about the hackathon that you can use to kind of, register and, propose all kinds of ideas. We also have a Telegram group, and obviously we have, the usual community channels and Twitter. So any way you want to reach out to us to participate, it's all good. And in the coming weeks, we're going to promote this hackathon a lot. We're going to, try to spread the word about it, both in Beam and other confidential cryptocurrency communities, and also in the Nostr communities. And I think it's going to be very interesting. The hackathon itself is the last 2 weeks of August.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's
and a question from myself, I guess, what would be the coolest applications or things or whatever that come from the hackathon for you? What would that look like or entail?
So one of the things that I think that even Twitter or the X, whatever, is talking about it, is this combination of messaging applications with financial applications, right? So, for example, it's not about just kind of, tipping or sending, funds. It's more about interactions. Even like think about it as a DEX with a built-in social network.
Yeah.
So, for example, you can create communities of traders that, not only talk about things, but also trade like within the same kind of interface.
Yeah.
Or even kind of, let's say, think about NFT gallery, but not in a way of like you go to the OpenSea and then you have this gallery, but in a more kind of lively chat, right? Somebody posts an NFT and then you can bid on it within the chat. So all kinds of integrations between the more classical kind of DeFi style financial applications and more like conversational interface. So that's what I really want to see. And it's really, we have all of the infrastructure for that already. And obviously, because everything is on Beam, so you have this privacy component kind of built in. So whenever you're doing, a bid, you are not exposing your identity. If you're publishing something, you're not exposing your identity. So this kind of I think would be the more interesting applications to develop.
That's wicked. And like, I totally agree that would be cool to see. And like, I think Elon, or however you say his name, has the X guy, Tesla guy, whatever, Musk. he's said like quite often about making X like the platform for everything. Like you can do your finances and this kind of stuff. And I've at least after living in China, I was always saying like how amazing WeChat was or Weixin. And in that you can pay for lunch, you can send money to your friend, you can pay your utility bills, you can pay rent, and everything right from within the same like social application. And it's very like it's amazing. And having more like finances and this kind of stuff, even investing and buying digital art are becoming more commonplace in like social commentary and our everyday lives. So it makes sense for them to be integrated with the social apps that we're using.
Yeah, absolutely. And recently I was watching this video on YouTube, and the author said that, if you donated like, I don't know, $1 to this channel, over, I don't know, a year, it would still be very significant in comparison with all of these like ads and, everything that you are kind of using to kind of monetize channels today. And I think that this is part of the paradigm shift. This is part of the changing of the financial model of how Web3 operates in comparison to Web2, because I think that when you are in live conversation or you're in the channel and you have immediate access to being able to send, some tokens or some assets to this person or to this channel to contribute, to participate in the campaign, it creates a completely different user experience from the current, like you go to Patreon and then you edit your credit card. The immediacy of it creates a completely different way that you experience the community and the process around this. And eventually, I think it will be much more profitable, not in, kind of profit kind of way, but it will be much more effective to support creators and, people that you want to support compared to what we have today.
Absolutely.
Now, if you add to this the fact that obviously there will be no ads and it will be decentralized and it will be private, I think that's kind of the dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's been at least kind of related, and I think we talked about this a bit before, and I'm not super familiar with it, but things like Patron, I think that's how you pronounce it. And you can pay to support content creators and this kind of thing. And I think that's really cool because there is a lot of value in a lot of the content that's coming out, whether it's educational or entertainment or whatever. And this is a far nicer way, in my opinion, to do things than watch an ad on something you don't really want, but hopefully you'll buy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the most important kind of change, differentiating the way that Web3 does things from the Web2. Because, obviously we're tired of ads and we're tired of all of these. It's not just the ads themselves, but this entire kind of the tracking, the targeting, all of that. It's all the result of the fact that there is no other way to monetize your content today on most Web2 platforms. And I think it's really not about people, wanting to pay or not wanting to pay money. It's about this friction that you have. You have to go and get out your credit card, and then you need to enter a lot of numbers. However, in the world of tokenomics, it's instant. And instead of buying all of these bulk tokens, you would be probably much better off giving a fraction of that money to people that you want to support, and eventually I think it will all work much, much better.
Definitely. And I think that NFTs, obviously NFTs have had a bit of a rough time recently, price and attention wise, but I think NFTs will kind of go this way to where they're used to help creators, used as a thank you or whatever for this kind of thing. And I think that will be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole new kind of experience of community and how communities operate. And today, I think in Twitter, it's obviously true because you have followers and you have people who participate in many conversations with you. So there is always this kind of core of people that support or reply to whatever you're saying. Obviously, in your case, it's exactly 3 people, but some people have more. Yeah. I was the second like on that.
I do really enjoy. I spend a lot of time on this app and mostly reading, but then occasionally I write a tweet and I even less frequently get likes, and I enjoy them very much. I mean that it's only a few as well. I don't want 1,000 people liking my tweet all the time. Then there's no if you're getting lots of likes all the time, then it don't really mean anything. But if you're getting 0 most of the time and then get 3 likes, it's very, very nice feeling.
I totally agree. No, for me, it's because once again, we're all in relatively small niche community, about Beam. And when I see a like from somebody that I don't recognize on Twitter, I react out. There's that. Oh, somebody doesn't know personally, suddenly like me, who is that exactly? How many followers?
Yeah,
it's important. Anyway, that's fun. That's funny. But so that's about the hackathon.
Before we go from the hackathon, we did have one question that was directly related to the hackathon, so I was thinking that I should ask it now. And this was, will Beam or the Beam team host their own Nostr relay for the hackathon?
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
We will.
Wicked. Cool.
Yeah. I say that a little bit like before I ever did it myself, but I mean, I hope I will manage.
We can figure it out.
I still have some time to figure it out. So yeah, there are several things that we have been talking for a while, and they are happening next week. I mean, for real this time. One of them is the upgrade of the accumulator, where we screwed up and we allocated the entire 6 million of BeamX to the BeamX pool, and we need to move part of it, 2 million, to Beanie free pool. Cool. So that's happening next week. Vladi implemented the upgrade. He was, by the way, here earlier, but he had to split, and here I mean in the space with us, and we need to test it, and we will roll out next week. The second thing that we'll roll out next week is the reverse bridges for moving Beam to Ethereum. Yeah, so these are done, complete, and we just need to roll them out. There are several important fixes that we need to make in the wallet, in the desktop wallet. One of them is related to creating new SBBS addresses.
Okay, yeah. And that was another question, I think, as well on the question list.
Yeah, so it's an issue that we introduced when we tried to fix the signatures and the signature generation, and then it just always creates the same SBBS address. So we need to fix that. And of course, we have a few additional fixes. The most kind of I think discussed topic this week in Beam community was about mining.
Yep.
Yeah, so I want to address that because there were a lot of different discussions and ideas, and I would like to kind of try to organize that. So first of all, I know that there are some people that are trying to set up solo mining, and they had a lot of issues, and also some of them don't see like the mining rewards after they mine the block. So all of these things we need to just investigate on the support level first of all, just to understand what's going on. And if you don't get it's a general kind of request that I repeat a lot, but it's very important to me. If you don't get enough answers, or you're saying you need more attention, please do not hesitate to ping me personally, because it's summer, a lot of people are on vacations, people are busy, people are doing all kinds of things, but these issues are very important to handle. So please, contact me, contact everyone, continue nagging until your issue is solved. It's an important thing. The second point is about the solo mining. Back in the day, it was not feasible to mine without a pool. Today, I'm not sure, depends on how many GPUs you have, depends on your setup. We did have a pretty good tutorial how to set up mining. There was an issue with the mining key ID that was fixed in the latest version. So first of all, make sure you're on the latest version of all the binaries that you have. And if you want to have solo miner as, I don't know, one GPU or one machine, I just want to know how many people like that are out there. Because I remember that we had it built in, back in when we started in 2019, we had a built-in miner in the wallet, in the desktop wallet. We removed it because no one used it because it was not feasible to mine without a pool. But maybe today there are enough solo miners, there's enough power free from Ethereum or whatever that we want to solo mine. So we need to understand exactly the scope of this issue, how many people need it. And then we will address it, right? Obviously, we will provide better tutorials, maybe. We will provide some additional software if it's needed. And it's an important issue for us. We just need to understand exactly, the scope of this issue, how many people really want it.
Wicked. Makes sense. Well, for me, it makes very little sense because I'm a mining noob, but absolutely. And it's cool to see more people interested in solo mining, because I think that they're the real stalwarts of proof of work chains.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely ignorant about mining. I'm not a miner. And for me, when I say solo mining, I mean using this graphics card that I have in my PC for, some games that I played once. But probably today, people with solo mining are sitting in this room, you see in the picture on Twitter, full of GPUs everywhere. Sure. And they call themselves a solo miner because they're not connected to the pool. But I mean, it's a it's a farm of
yeah. I have a basement heating the neighborhood solo mining. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Because I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, solo miners, like who wants to be? And then I'm like, yeah, probably Rascal also calls himself solo miner, right?
I don't even know if my computer has a GPU, and if it does, I don't know what it does.
So it's important for us to handle it, and we will continue discussing it. In this context, there were several additional discussions and ideas. One of them is kind of changing, the mining algorithm to benefit smaller miners or something like that. It's also related to this question that we have in our list at number 5, which is about the ghost duck. Somebody asked about, like, 2 years ago, we talked about ghost duck. Okay, so I just want to give this kind of answer to all of that together. One of the problems not problems, but one of the things that we are very kind of strict about is the beam emission schedule, right? So obviously there will be no change unless there is a very good reason for it to change the emission schedule, and the emission schedule is closely related to the amount of blocks and the block rewards and everything in between. So that's the first thing. I don't think it's very, like, it's feasible to create an algorithm that profits, like, benefits smaller miners or giving them more chance or whatever, because in terms of the blockchain doesn't know who is mining what. They just, like, the blockchain receives a new block with the solved, the solved puzzle from the miner.
Yeah.
And then it knows the difficulty, so it can adjust the difficulty of the mining algorithm based on the tempo, like, with which the blocks are created, the rate with which the blocks are created, but it doesn't know how many miners solve it. So it could have been, one, GPU doing it by accident, or a billion GPUs doing it, like, very quickly. From the blockchain perspective, it's exactly the same. However, there are different mining algorithms, and DAG-based algorithms are, like, one of those, where you do have a kind of more blocks created, and then you have several branches of the blockchain kind of existing at the same time, something that's not possible in classical Satoshi consensus. And then all of them, they collapse into a single, blockchain eventually, but at the same time, you have kind of several branches to choose from. And one of the effects of this approach is that you have kind of more blocks created by more miners. They're smaller, right? Obviously, in terms of rewards and everything, but you have more distribution, right? Instead of having, like, each block created by this one pool, you have kind of more blocks created at the same time. And it has this effect of decentralizing this a little bit. And is the approach that is used by Kaspa, which implements the ghost duck algorithm that we've been researching back in the day.
Yep.
Just like we said in 2020, it's an interesting concept. It can be done. That we can change it. It has a lot of consequences. Like, obviously, it's not a simple change and needs to be carefully understood in two aspects. The first one is the aspect of the emission. So we don't change the emission schedule that we have today.
Yeah.
And the second one is that we're using Fly Client, and Fly Client, it actually relies on how the blocks are, like, validated. The difficulty of the blocks is validated in bulk, and we need to be careful not to break that in the process, because this is what allows us to have mobile wallets with fast connect and fast sync options.
Yeah, this is one of the, or at least what I remember, one of the, like, not blockers, but kind of blocker for GhostTag with regards to Beam is the Fly Client, and the two don't really kind of mix well.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's not, like, solvable at all, but it's something that makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, with that kind of context, there was a question about, like, what about, like, high frequency transactions, or, like, L2s? Like, what's the relation between these three mechanisms? Like, so for example, GhostTag does not necessarily improve. It can, but that does not have to improve the transactions per second of the blockchain.
Yeah. Okay.
Because eventually it depends on how many transactions you pack into all of these blocks after all, right? So the eventual kind of result. Yeah. But the GhostTag, as I said, it improves decentralization of mining. The high frequency transactions that Vladi implemented back in the day, it was not instead of GhostTag, it was a completely different approach. And it does improve kind of the responsiveness of the blockchain, because in Beam you have 1 block per minute, but you don't want to wait for an entire minute on average until you get the result from your DeFi application when you're trading. So high-frequency transactions address that aspect. So when you are doing the trades using DeFi applications, you can see the transactions that have not been mined yet accumulated in the mempool, and the application can analyze those transactions and tell you what will be the state of the application after all of these transactions. Yeah. And then once this entire kind of sequence of transactions is mined, then the state is actually updated to what you saw. But you can react to new transactions appearing in the mempool much faster than, just waiting for them to be mined. Yeah. So that's the purpose of the high-frequency transaction. They do not, for example, improve scalability of regular value transfer transactions. Those are exactly the same. It's just relevant to DeFi applications.
Okay, cool.
Now, the third approach, the L2, which is, what is very popular today in Arbitrum or Optimism, all of these kind of roll-up of all kinds. This is a completely different approach because, first of all, most of them are centralized because they run sequencers, and these sequencers, are not part of a network. They just collect a lot of transactions and then they combine them together, either using optimistic roll-up mechanism or a zero-knowledge proof, but it has this centralization point. And also, you have to go through there, right? You have to use a specific kind of mempool for these projects in order for them to be able to do all of this magic of, gathering transactions together. So it is possible to create L2 on Beam, just like it is possible to create it on any blockchain, like Ethereum, for example. But it's not instead of high-frequency transactions, and it's like a new dimension that you can open at any time.
Yeah, and I have a question, I guess, and would although L2s and high-frequency transactions, they're not kind of addressing the same issue to solve, would GhostDAG and L2s be more comparable, or it's still like if you have a GhostDAG base chain or base layer chain, then you can also scale it more with layer 2s?
So I'm not sure exactly about the parameters of GhostDAG, like what it allows to do, but even if it is a little bit more kind of transaction per second than standard Nakamoto consensus, it's not a significant increase. It's not a 100x.
Yeah. Okay.
Because after all, there is a well-defined trade-off between your level of decentralization and your speed of how quickly you can do things, right? So the more decentralized you are, the slower you have to be in terms of transaction per second.
Yeah, makes sense. And back to that whole trade-offs here and there and everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So another good question that, by the way, is is asked very often, and mostly it's asked not in our community, but when I get to meet some new people, either in the AMA context or an interview context or wherever. How would we know if there is an inflation?
Yeah, this is
if the amount are.
This is a good question and a very scary thought as well.
Yeah. So it's a great question, and it's not only scary; it's the scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and indeed, the answer is if there is a bug in the code that is on the level of creating the UTXOs, right, and it's exploited, yes, it would lead to inflation, and it would not be easy to see immediately, obviously. And the only alternative is that to really do so. By the way, one of the things that Zcash did back in the day when they had discovered that they had a bug, they did all of these kind of restructuring transactions through open transactions. So basically, they forced people to unshield all of the shielded UTXOs, make sure there was no inflation, and then you can shield them back.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, in Beam, that's not possible because we do not have unshielded UTXOs. And yes, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. It's an issue with any privacy coin. So the only way to address that is to do a lot of testing, open the source code, allow everyone to look at it, including people, when I say everyone, I'm not just saying every user of Beam needs to go to the GitHub and, read the implementation of the cryptography primitives, but there are people who know what they're doing, like people who work in this area, people who are the security researchers. And once again, obviously, we did it with external auditing companies that we asked them to review that. But I also think there should be more independent organizations paid by, I don't know, everyone, right?
Yeah.
So on Ethereum, set up this fund for like, instead of paying to Arkham or whatever, set up a fund for security researchers to go over all the protocols. And I think the same should be done for all the privacy coins, individually, together, whatever. And yes, like, it's very important to review this code, and you wouldn't know. However, that's the price of privacy, right? You if you want to be private, if you want things encrypted, you need to be able to use, first of all, the most proven cryptographic tools and libraries. Do not invent anything, new. That's not the method. And then, don't do that. And then you have to have as many professional eyes as possible on that code and let it run and test it and do all of these things and hope that after all of this effort, it works. And by the way, like, it's not unique to privacy.
No, I mean,
exactly the same.
Like with what happened with Curve last week, I mean, it's been around for a long time and now has some issues. So, I mean, and I'm sure I have no idea, but I would assume, which is not very often a good thing to do on crypto, but I'm sure it had some audits and this kind of stuff, and definitely had some, like, many eyes on the code and this kind of thing, and it was only later discovered that there was this kind of bug.
Totally, but I would go further to say that it's not only problem in blockchain and crypto, but if you are using any service today, if you're talking about session or encrypted messengers, anything that includes cryptography and encrypted things, yes, obviously it's not as kind of financially bad as runaway emission in the privacy coin, but it's still quite important, not easily noticeable, and affects your life. So I think, first of all, we should demand that all of these projects are open source.
Yeah.
And then
and I mean, it comes like I mean, I'm typing on my computer, which is Apple, and I guess Apple is worth a lot of money. Maybe, I have no idea, trillions of dollars. But like, even in 2023, like the current year, and it's only halfway through, they've had 10 zero-day vulnerabilities in the software that they've released. So I mean, it's not a crypto thing. It's in every, like, software and also hardware, I'm sure. Like, there's no such thing as perfection, but we can continue to strive for it.
Yeah, totally. And like, many times that I'm asked these questions, it's in the context of, like, I don't trust what you are doing there. It's like, oh, you can have infinite emission and you will not know because it's all encrypted. I don't trust it. Like, it's fine. I mean, I respect your position. However, I think it would be better for us as a group, as a society, to have, like, privacy, which was carefully designed, verified, tested, and then provided to us, than just say, oh, there could be a bug in privacy. So no problem. I will just give up my privacy altogether in all aspects. Nothing will be encrypted. It's fine.
Yeah.
So between these two extremes, I think I would be.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of questions about the Beam Messenger.
Yeah.
So Beam Messenger, I think, is going to somehow, and this is kind of my feeling, no promises, but I feel it's going to move to Nostr after the hackathon.
Okay, cool.
Because I'm almost positive that at least some of the participants will implement, messaging with privacy based on, Nostr protocol inside Beam, and this, I think, going to be a replacement for the current version of the Messenger, which is very limited. Yeah. And all of these features that are mentioned in these questions, the group support, the kind of integration with bands application, I think all of these are very good potential topics for the hackathon. That's exactly like one of the things that we would like to see implemented.
Wicked. And totally agree. Yeah. And I like when we first started talking about Nostr and this kind of thing, it was not that like far after the first kind of MVP of Beam Messenger had been kind of put forth to the community.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think like, this is a great idea. Maybe it's better to integrate with something else that's like specialized and focused purely on the social aspect rather than trying to build it out ourselves. And like the questions were like adding DM buttons for bands and group support for Beam Messenger, and I can't help but think like the way forward for Beam anyway will be to kind of leverage all of the other like great open source decentralized technology that is out there, and focusing on these other niches beyond what we're focusing on.
Oh, absolutely. Also, like architecturally speaking, it's much more correct approach to make it as an application which is integratable with other applications and smart contracts and all of these services, instead of how we built the current messenger, which is basically like a one level above SDBS, and it's integrated like in the wallets, and difficult to change, difficult to update, difficult to modify. So yeah, I think by all properties and standards, whatever we're building with Nostr will be much more in the right direction than the current implementation. Yeah, for sure. Okay, that was fun. We did answer all the questions, which is great. We did provide a lot of updates, which is amazing. And yeah, so next week, obviously, same time, same place. I hope that everyone will be healthy and well. And yeah, so we will follow on the updates and obviously release information about kind of the things that are happening next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Wicked. Alex, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad that we're back this week, and looking forward to next week already.
We will. By the way, one topic that I think I wanted to talk about, but as usual, not enough time, was the topic of GDPR.
Okay, yeah.
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to reach out to some real expert in this area, that somebody who really understands the law, and talk to them about the relation between GDPR and blockchains in general, and asking some questions like, what happens when when the company goes away and the data is in the wind, and stuff like that. I tried to do it. I tried to reach out to some people on LinkedIn. I didn't get answers yet, but I will continue doing so. In any way, if you know someone you could recommend as an expert in this field it doesn't have to be necessarily GDPR. It can be any law, because GDPR is in Europe, but it can be any kind of regulation that talks about data security and privacy and all of these topics. I would love to talk to them, to invite them to our space, or maybe do a separate space or interview with them, because it's really, there are a lot of valid questions about what does it mean when you put personal information on blockchain. How does it relate to current regulation? For example, right to be forgotten, like delete my account, all of these things obviously don't work exactly the same with blockchain. So yeah, if you know somebody like that, please let us know.
Absolutely.
Okay, man. Thank you very much. It's been great. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all, and see you soon.
Bye. Take care.
You too.